All right, welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports NBA 2K18 roster edits. Today we're going to talk about the Vancouver/Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, I said Vancouver. Some of the viewers that may not be old enough to realize the Grizzlies were an expansion team that were actually in Canada, along with the Toronto Raptors when they first came into the league, and they only spent a short time in Vancouver before they relocated to Memphis. So there are a lot of changes to this roster, in my opinion. I actually delete 4 players and add 4 players, so just kind of bear with me and we'll go through these together. Hopefully you agree with my choices and you agree with why I deleted these people, but that's the beauty of this. It's always up for debate. So your great players, of course, are the Gasol brothers. You have Pau, the younger Pau Gasol, and you have Marc. Obviously, you keep Zach Randolph on the team, Mike Conley. Very happy they added Shareef Abdur-Rahim to the roster this year. You can see him wearing the Vancouver jersey there. This was a guy that I always created for my custom teams, and I'm glad that he agreed to finally be on this game. Shane Battier, also a great ball player. Tony Allen, the defensive specialist for the Grizzlies for many years. Mike Bibby, I feel Bibby also makes this team. Jason Williams, I was kind of on the fence on. So, and the reason for that is you can only have so many point guards on a team, and he really only played there 4 years. I mean, when you think of Jason Williams, what do you think of him as? Do you think of him as a Heat? Do you think of him, it's kind of a mixed bag on Williams. Mike Miller, I felt that he belonged on the team. And we're not talking about the Mike Miller of recent. We're talking about the younger Mike Miller. I wish they would have gave him a different picture because when he was a younger player, he was a lights-out shooter. I mean, the guy played on Team USA, got a gold medal, I believe, and he was a great ball player in his day. Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay is probably one of the most underrated players in the NBA, in my opinion. As you can see, he originally started with Memphis and played, nearly 6 seasons with them before being traded to Toronto, then later Sacramento, and now he's currently with the Spurs. But Rudy Gay has put together a very quiet, very productive career, and hopefully he'll get that championship ring. Byron Scott is the first that I would remove from this team because if you look at the history, he played 1 season for Memphis. I mean, you can't have a guy that played 1 season and call him an all-time great for a team. I'm sorry. Also, the same with Greg Anthony. Greg Anthony played 2 seasons there. And it's not that Anthony wasn't a good ball player, but when you have a roster with a lot of point guards, with Mike Bibby, with like Mike Conley, you can't have 4 or 5 point guards on one team. So I think Greg Anthony gets the boot as well. Bonzi Wells, also another good player, but as you can see, he only played a season and a half for Memphis. I mean, you can't consider that one of the greatest Grizzlies ever when you only play a season and a half for a team. James Posey. James Posey was a good player. I wouldn't rank him as one of the best. As you can see, he was a journeyman type of player and only played 2 years with Memphis. So I tried to focus more on guys that have more of longer career with Memphis than these players. So that's why I deleted those 4: Posey, Wells, Anthony, and Scott. So stay with me and we'll give you the roster edits. Hopefully you agree with me on my choices. Alright, so here we are. This is the starting lineup for the all-time Vancouver/Memphis Grizzlies. The first thing that I want to point out is Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol are both listed as centers. The first order of business for me was to change Pau Gasol to a power forward. So, even though Gasol can be argued as a center, I kind of feel that having both Gasols in the starting lineup is more effective than having, say, Zach Randolph or Shane Battier in the starting lineup. I would rather have both of these guys in my starting lineup because I feel by the time their careers are over, they're both going to be in the Hall of Fame. Might be the first Hall of Fame brothers in the NBA. That would be a pretty cool thing. Finally, the starting lineup would be Mike Conley, longtime Memphis Grizzly. As you can see, he's played many seasons for the Grizzlies, 10 years or so. Mike Miller, and this is again younger Mike Miller, even though that picture doesn't give him justice. Younger Mike Miller at the starting shooting guard. That gives you your 3-point threat. Shareef Abdur-Rahim at the small forward. Abdur-Rahim was kind of a small forward slash power forward type, but because we have Pau Gasol at power forward, you got to bump Abdur-Rahim down to the small forward, which I think is sufficient. He had some great seasons, as you can see with the Grizzlies, averaged over 20 a game his first, 4 seasons there. Not first 4, but 4 of his 5 seasons he was there, he averaged over 20 a game. So going down to the bench, we talked about Randolph, we talked about Battier already. At your backup shooting guard, there's your defensive specialist. Obviously, if you're playing like the all-time Bulls, you might want to insert him over Mike Miller to try to guard Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or somebody like that. I feel that Michael Jordan would eat Mike Miller alive in a simulated game. So there's Tony Allen, your defensive specialist. There's your backup point guard, Mike Bibby, also sporting the Vancouver jersey. And this is the first edition, and I know that his number is incorrect, but one of the little glitches that I haven't been able to work around, it's not a glitch, is you can't duplicate numbers really well on a team. And being that Zach Randolph is already number 50, when you create a player, I had to make him number 52. But Bryant Big Country Reeves, the great out of Oklahoma State University, I feel that before he got injured, he was a very good ball player. He only had a short career in the NBA, but I feel to be a backup center to Marc Gasol or Pau Gasol definitely makes the list. There's Rudy Gay that we spoke of. He was already on the team, so we'd leave him there. Jason Williams I left there. And this is another addition of a forgotten player, and this is Stromile Swift, the LSU product. He played many good years with the Grizzlies. He was somebody that was on the team as kind of a power forward center type, could rebound the ball, put some points in. I feel that he's a good guy to have on the bench in case you don't want to use Reeves, because as you can see, this team's kind of a small lineup once you get out of the starting lineup. Guys that aren't really that big. So having a guy like Stromile Swift on there is important. And I replaced Posey, excuse me, wrong sport. I replaced James Posey with current Memphis Grizzly JaMychal Green. JaMychal's only been there, as you can see, for about 4 seasons, but he is kind of a good rebounding type, throwing about 10 and 10 a game for you. I just bumped the camera, sorry about that. But I felt JaMychal's another good guy like Stromile Swift. It doesn't hurt to have him on the bench. And finally, I round out the roster with Chandler Parsons, who's also on the current team. If we were to debate on who needs to go, Chandler Parsons would probably be my choice. If you have a better Memphis or Vancouver Grizzly that played there for more than a season or 2, I go back to, I can't put Byron Scott on this team. He played there 1 year. Or James Posey for 1.5 years. But if you can come up with a better, current Memphis Grizzly, this would be the guy that I would get rid of. Again, it really doesn't matter if you've watched my other videos. Your 14th and 15th player really don't matter because you can't use them during the game unless you make roster edits. So, finally, like I said, the people to create are Bryant Reeves and Stromile Swift, but I also add JaMychal and Chandler Parsons to the roster over the other guys. And the team is coached by Lionel Hollins. I really had to do some research and try to guess on who would coach this team. I would say Lionel Hollins was probably the most successful coach thus far for the Memphis Grizzlies. They've had some pretty bad luck over the last couple of years, but when the Grizzlies were making the playoffs, Lionel Hollins was the guy at the helm. So I hope you agree with my selections. I feel that this is a pretty solid team, but obviously you're probably going to get your butt handed to you if you try to play the all-time Bulls, Lakers, or Celtics with this team. So I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for future episodes. I hope you enjoy NBA 2K18 as much as I do, because this is probably my most favorite feature. I'm not an online gamer. I just love making my all-time rosters and simulating, playoffs and seasons with these all-time rosters. So stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks.